I think before the story told by women were the story of seduction, of beauty seen as an object of desire. And when women became executives, they wanted to tell the other stories, the reason why we use fashion or we use makeup. There are other reasons than seducing a man.
Congratulations on the film. I really loved it.
Thank you. I loved the film too. I mean, it sounds not humble, but I saw the film and I thought, we all try to make good films, and then there is some films that are magical. They have something else, another layer, and I think this film is excellent.
Did you know that to begin with? Were you an easy yes on this film?
It was an easy yes because the script was so wonderful, and it shot in New York. It shot in Rome. It shot in Rome, where I grew up. Friends of mine were involved: John Lithgow, Stanley Tucci. So all that was very pleasant, and it was very pleasant. But I loved the script, and I loved particularly my role, because in the church, of course, it's the role of women and men is very different. Men make more the decision. The priests are the one that gave the mass. The nuns are not even allowed to have mass. So the role of women is really to serve the men. And this is the conclave. The conclave is the word we use for the election of a new pope. And he's elected by 120 cardinals, all dressed in black, in red, cardinal red.
Beautiful dark red.
Beautiful dark red. And we are all dressed in dark blue. And just even the body language with them, when we arrived, the first day we shot the scene where we all arrived, and they arrived with their beautiful red dots, because the camera is up high, just looking at the movement. And there's red dots, they aggregate, they separate, one per cardinal goes talk to that one, and we are always together, avoiding to be... giving them all the room and all the space. And just that choreography gave me so clearly the image of this Sister Agnes that was as to be invisible and yet completely present. I don't have much to say, although in the film I think everybody knows exactly what she's thinking.
I stopped you before we started. You were telling me about shooting in the Vatican, and I was telling you.
Yes. So no, we couldn't really shoot in the Vatican. In Italy, in Rome, there is a very beautiful, famous studio called Cinecittà.
Yeah.
And in Cinecittà, we reconstructed the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
And there are other sets that are fabulous. In fact, if you go, you should just go as a tourist because it's open to tourists. There is the entire Rome Empire.
You don't need to go.
It's fantastic, but so we reconstructed the Sistine Chapel. We weren't allowed to shoot there.
My mistake. But had you spent any time in the Vatican before?
So I'm from Rome. I grew up in Rome. So the Vatican is right there. The Vatican is a city or a neighborhood within Rome, but it's independent. They have their own stamps, they have their own banks. It's open. We don't have to, there is no place where you have to show your passport. It's open to everybody. And there's this incredibly beautiful St. Peter Church. We shot around it and sometimes in places, but the Vatican is still active. The Pope is there, the churches, the churchgoers. So we couldn't shoot there. We had to shoot in a studio.
But what about you? Like when you were growing up, did you find yourself in there at all? I mean, being the child of two very famous people in Italy, I thought you might be invited in there. I thought you might have met a pope or two or something like that in there. You know what I mean?
No, you don't know. You don't see a pope. You don't even meet a pope so easily. It depends on the pope. I think this pope is more.
Francis is a
little bit more open, and sometimes you ran into him in the streets, but that's very unusual. No, but the Vatican and the Mass, the choirs, they have an incredible museum. All that is open, and also the politics of conservative versus liberal, and all that is also represented in our film. That I was familiar with because I grew up in Rome.
Did you grow up going to Mass? And
Yes, I grew up Roman Catholic. My grandmother was very devout. Not so much my parents, though, Italians are a little bit Catholic by culture. I mean, sometimes I can maybe compare to Jewish people who may not go to the synagogue, but they are Jewish by culture. And so Italian are glued together, even if they are not a believer, but they do have a kind of a Catholic glue.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm Catholic, and I've always found that, or I was raised Catholic. Well, there you go. I've always found that part very interesting, the sort of secret selection of the new pope.
Yes, it's completely. They go in sequestration in the Sistine Chapel, and they stayed in the Vatican in places that I've never visited. You can visit the Sistine Chapel when they are not doing, cardinals are not meeting. It's open, millions of tourists to go see it. And it's closed only when they need it for their meetings or the conclaves. They have places where they can sleep, like no hotels, but like a monastery little cell where everybody can sleep there, and they are completely confiscated from talking to the public. So the conclave, they just have smoke. They show black smoke, when meaning today we worked, but we have not decided a pope. But when there is white smoke coming from the Vatican, you know that a new pope has been chosen. And then there is everybody in the city runs to the piazza of the Vatican to see the window of where the pope appears every Sunday blessing the people. That window opens and they reveal who is the new pope.
It's always very exciting. I always end up watching it on TV. I have a question about, we were talking earlier about how you had these very famous parents growing up in Italy, and even though you didn't get to meet a pope or two, my question is, I would have thought, being the child of a very famous director and a very famous actor, you would have been an early director or an early actor, and instead you were a model at first. Why were you pulled in that direction?
I think partially because my father, Roberto Rossellini, and my mother, Ingrid Bergman, were so well known and so talented, and I was intimidated. I thought that maybe I should do something on my own that doesn't. It's not what they do. So I first started to become a costume designer, and my dad gave me my first jobs his wife was, his first wife was the costume designer, and my stepmother, gave me my first job to assist her. And then I started modeling instead, and modeling became very successful, and I was very happy to have a career that was separated from cinema, from my parents, that was my own. But talking to Richard Avedon, who I've worked a lot with, Avedon used to say, "But Isabella, modeling is a little bit like acting. You don't have lines, but I'm not photographing a beautiful nose or a beautiful mouth. I'm photographing emotion, and you are emoting in front of my camera. So you could." And a lot of models were evolving their career into acting because it's a little longer. Modeling generally is very brief, like 2 years, 3 years, and then that's it. So it was only in my 30s that I decided to become an actress. And then in my 50s to become a director. Just took me a long time.
When you decided to become an actor, you didn't, how do I put this? The roles you took on were darker. They were, I think about Blue Velvet or Death Becomes Her. These are darker.
Death Becomes Her. Yeah. It's dark. I mean, it's completely farcical and comical.
Well, you know what I mean. It's not exactly, Gorillas in the Mist. It's, it's not exactly, running down the street. It seemed like you were drawn to darker films. Or is my hunch wrong?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you mentioned maybe the two films that were most successful. I think that I have an accent, so that limits somehow my, I can never play being part of a family, because why would that daughter speak differently than the other brothers and sisters? So that limited some of my casting. My father was the experimental filmmaker. He was very influential as a director, but he wasn't a box office director. So I think that because of family tradition and my accent, and I was more experimental. I worked with Guy Maddin or Robert Wilson, or actually I enjoy working in the experimental work, because there is great freedom in it. If you work with various, for example, when I did Death Becomes Her with Robert Zemeckis, who had just finished Forrest Gump, Roger Rabbit, and he would say to me, I have the weight of the world in my shoulder. They always expect me to do a big film that it is very successful. When you work on experimental film, there is less of that pressure. You're experimenting. If it goes well, you're lucky. If it doesn't, well, it's an experiment. You try again.
I was just thinking, you said that I have this accent, so I wasn't going to be cast as another member of the family. And in this film, you got to speak Italian. Is that a joy for you to be able to do that in a film?
Yes. Oh no, I do. I also do Italian films, so sometimes I speak Italian. I speak 4 languages, but I work in 3: French, Italian, and English.
What are the 4 you speak?
The Spanish, but I mix that with, I can probably play a Spanish film because then you memorize the line. Because when I speak Spanish, I mix it with Italian. They're very similar, the languages, so it's difficult for me to keep them separate. But I'm in the theater in France in November and December, so I do work in 3 languages.
Different. I'm not an actor, so sometimes my acting questions, I'm sort of grasping at straws here because I'm very curious about it. Do you feel different acting in different languages? Are you a different actor in each language?
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. No, I don't think so, because I'm playing the character I'm playing. In fact, when I speak French, I'm fluent, but I have the same problem as in English. I cannot be integrated as one of the daughter of the family, because I would be... I don't think a language changes your personality. Language just is a means of communication, so... Oh, no. Sometimes it's difficult to memorize. I mean, when I'm in the theater, I try to, like, in November and December, probably I'll try to speak very little English and speak, because when you speak languages, you think about what you're saying. You're not thinking, oh, I'm saying this in Italian, I'm saying this in French. You mix them up. And if I mix them up too much, I could be on stage and switch. And instead of saying my line in French, I might switch them and saying in English without even realizing.
Oh, really?
Yes, that could happen very, very easily. Unless I speak French all day long and I watch films in French and I read French books, so that my brain is, all in French. So I don't. But it would be difficult to be in the theater in French, but spend a day speaking English and reading books in English.
You made this film. You mentioned Guy Maddin earlier,
yes.
and you made this film with the Guy Maddin, who, for people who are listening, is a great Canadian director who has a film at TIFF this year. Yeah. Your film was called My Dad is 100 Years Old, and in it you wonder out loud about whether your father's films are being forgotten. But in some ways, it's about the ephemeral nature of art as well.
Exactly.
I was listening to this interview the other day with, I think it was Conan O'Brien, and he brought his son to Cary Grant's grave. Oh. And his son, if I'm remembering it correctly, his son had no idea who Cary Grant was. I think his son's like 16. It's understandable. And Conan says, I had this moment where I realized that everything I've ever done ultimately may not matter.
Yeah.
Can you? I've been obsessed with it.
Well, I knew that, but I don't know why Conrad find it out only now. We all know that. We know that what we do, it's not for eternity. It's for hopefully the public that is here today. But can you give me 10 names of silent movie stars? No. And silent movie stars were even more famous. People flocked to the silent movie more than they even go to the cinema today.
I mean, I got into Chaplin recently, and I couldn't get over how famous Chaplin was.
Oh, incredible. Yeah.
But, who does
that... I know Chaplin people know Chaplin. No, a little bit.
But I wonder whether 12, 13-year-olds are going to know Chaplin.
Yeah, I live in the country, and we have a little cinema, art house, and in the winter I rent in the morning, and I show Chaplin, Buster Keaton to all kids, so that was this incredible art of silent film. That was the pantomime it was just an art that started, and it was developing to be fantastic, and then sound came and killed that way of expression by a technology, because silent films has its own acting, the music is very important, the acrobatic of Chaplin or Keaton or Harold Lloyd, all that is gone.
But does that give you comfort that no one's going to care. You know what I mean? Like, I'm surrounded by this industry, and I'm surrounded by this art, and people can take it so seriously. And what feeling do you get when people start talking about legacy?
Death?
People, yeah. Not about death, about art, about people. You know, the idea of these things being so serious, and art's going to last forever, and people are going to live through their work.
I don't know. They do and they don't. I'm sure my parents were seen, or their films were seen more when they were alive than now they are dead. Now that they are dead, maybe their films are seen by people that are interested in the history of films, or filmmakers that want to learn about films, so they look at the past. But the general public probably is not. So you're asking me. I just do things that are interested now that I'm alive. When I'm dead, I'm dead. I'm not wondering what happened to me or my reputation when I'm dead. I'm dead.
I know, but I think the reason I'm asking you about it is because I feel like you have that's a unique perspective. Like, I feel like the thing that you, with all love,
it's a realistic perspective. I hope everybody got it, because if you don't have it, you're going to be very disappointed.
Yeah, but I think you have a unique perspective in that, you know, the story of where the very famous story about you, where Lacombe, you know, drops you for being not being young anymore, and then all of a sudden you use that as an opportunity to go back to school and to be interested in things that you've always been interested in but didn't feel like you could pursue. And then you start a farm, and you start looking after animals, and you start tending chickens. I feel like, in terms of not taking it all too seriously and finding passion in your life, you do have a unique perspective on it.
Oh, no, because I thought you were talking about death. So, no, I did my career at a certain point. My career as a model at a certain point came to a halt. Mm-hmm. And I was having very big contracts, and where I was very successful. And the reason the executive gave me when I said, well, we're very successful, why do we stop? They said, advertisement is about a dream, and women dream to be young. So a 42-year-old woman cannot represent that dream. And 20 years later, I was called back. And so I said, well, what happened about the dream of staying young? I'm 20 years older. And they said, you know, I think that a lot had to do with women executives. I think before, the story told by women were the story of seduction, of beauty seen as an object of desire. And when women became executives, they wanted to tell the other stories, the reason why we use fashion or we use makeup. There are other reasons than seducing a man. It's fun. Mm-hmm. It could be creative. Mm-hmm. It gives you a sense of elegance, a kind of a parallel language to what we can say with words. You present yourself in a certain way. And I think that those voices were a little stifled until women became executive, and they say, oh, no, but we can widen the scope. In fact, you know, the advertisement, Lancôme, the cosmetic company that I work for, nowadays doesn't only have beautiful women doing their advertising. It has comedic women, influencers. It has poets, rappers, not women that are creative and have energy and are positive, like role model, but not really.
I tell you what I think I'm doing. I was talking about death when I was talking about that, because I feel like, and maybe this is a good way to close things off, like I feel like you have perspective on what really matters. Like, when you have this early career and it goes away, and then you go to farming and you go to all these things that are real, and you seem to take on roles that mean something to you, and then you make a movie with Guy Madden about how all art is ephemeral and everything goes away, including my father's work. I just feel like you have perspective on what really matters in this life. I know, because
this is what the young people attribute to older people, wisdom. And maybe we're wise, but maybe we're not. We just come across as wise.
You don't think you're wise?
I don't know. I don't know that I can teach anything to anybody. I think I gave myself a good life.
What's the next dream for you? What's the next dream you want for yourself?
I think I will continue. I would like to continue to make my short films. My short film series about animals, and I would like to crack the nut about how to make my small organic farm financially viable. Because small farms are not financially viable, yet they're very desirable, and everybody in the community loves it. And so we're working with other farmers to find solution. How can we make them? Because right now I'm financing them with my earnings as an actress.
Right. I tell you what I'm getting from you.
What?
Wisdom. Whether you like it or not, I'm getting wisdom from you. Lovely to meet you. Thanks for coming in.
No, thank you.